Was it so advanced because he wasn't getting regular checkups?
Donald Trump says he's saddened by news that former US President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Biden's health over the past few years has been the subject of intense speculation. Last year, he withdrew from the presidential race after a disastrous performance in a debate, paving the way for Donald Trump to win the presidency. I'm here with Joe Grogan, who is the former director of the United States Domestic Policy Council and was assistant to President Donald Trump between 2019 and 2020. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. What's your reaction to the Joe Biden cancer news?
Well, obviously, you feel compassion for anybody facing such a diagnosis. He's not a young guy, but for anybody, a treatment of prostate cancer with metastases to the bone is not simple. So it's going to be difficult on him. It's going to be very tiring. It's going to be painful. And it's going to be very difficult for his family to watch him go through it.
Does this have an effect on US politics? I'm thinking of two things. First of all, that Donald Trump has quite aggressively blamed Joe Biden for some of what he viewed as mistakes that have left the country in the state that Donald Trump believes it to be in. And I'm wondering whether that might be toned down. But also, there are these persistent accusations that senior Democrats covered up the state of Joe Biden's ill health towards the end. And this is, in some sense, a validation of that, is it not?
Yeah, I would agree with you on the latter. I mean, it's not an accusation that they covered up his mental state. I mean, they did cover up his mental state, and many of them are admitting to it now. It seems there are several books coming out about it, numerous articles, and this has been whispered about in Washington, D.C. for years. I mean, since shortly after he was elected. So it was a cover up of Joe Biden's health. It raises profound constitutional questions about the health of the presidency when senior aides and cabinet officials will hide somebody's medical condition like this. I think it's a debate that we in the United States will have for some time about how to ensure nothing like this happens again. I think it's a reckoning for the Democratic Party because they paved the way for Donald Trump to win, which was their number one feared outcome of all this. They could have stood any candidate besides Trump, and they got exactly what they feared the most. So I don't think it shortens that debate at all. If anything, to your point, it does prolong it because this is a pretty advanced diagnosis. And was it so advanced because he wasn't getting regular checkups? He wasn't getting regular medical checkups. I think some of this will be unpacked over time, but clearly there was a political and medical cover-up of his mental condition over the last few years.
Joe Biden has just posted on X, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support." Let's move on to Donald Trump's time as president so far. I think it's not especially revelatory to say he's not that popular in the rest of the world, but we don't have to like him. What's your assessment after the first 100 days? Is he doing what he needs to at home?
I think so. I think he's doing what he set out to do, what he promised to do. I think, the White House itself feels like they're in a very good place right now. He didn't show up to do nothing and do ribbon cuttings and just have, tea at the White House and sign picayune bills that make people feel good. He set out to reset American trade, reset our foreign policy, and reinvigorate American manufacturing over the long term. He just comes off a huge tour of the Middle East that they view as triumphant, and it was a remarkable reset and direction for American Middle East policy that wasn't given enough credit. So I think he's feeling good. I mean, they don't, and his team certainly feels good about where he is. That they're in a very much stronger position than they were 8 years ago when they came in. They're executing on their plan, and they're getting attacked by the media as they expected to, but they're not second guessing the direction that they're headed.
But so we were told one of the sort of assessments of the loss, as the Democrats saw it, was that this was about the price of eggs. It was about something extremely domestic that was hitting people in their pockets. Now we're seeing that the estimates of the costs of tariffs for the average family. Well, we're seeing estimates from $3,000 to $5,000 a year from places like Yale. If those start coming through, then that's a heck of a lot of eggs, isn't it? I mean, are we going to start to see people saying, "Hang on, this isn't what we want"?
Well, certainly, if there are price increases over the long term, then there'll be voters will make themselves heard. And but generally speaking, new producers come online, new manufacturing will come online, new options will come online. That's part of the gamble with some of these tariffs and the repatriation of American manufacturing. That more American companies will step forward, more jobs will be created, more people will hire and expand. I will point out that the price of eggs has gone down significantly since President Trump came into office. I think the most recent number I saw was 17%. So on much of his agenda, he's executing, and they feel good about where they are as far as inflation numbers are concerned, as far in progress in the first 100 days or so. But there's much more to be done, and they know that they're not thinking this is going to be easy.
I mean, so on eggs, the eggs themselves have come down. There was quite a sort of exogenous shock of things like bird flu, but groceries overall are up. He said that the price of groceries were falling, but they're not. The inflation rate is still, I think, about 2.4%. At some point people will notice these things, and they will notice if tariffs, as almost every single economist in the world would say, tariffs de facto must increase prices.
Well, look, the gamble that they're making is, and the plan that they're executing on is that the United States cannot continue to run massive trade deficits ad infinitum and cannot export so much of American manufacturing year after year, and that we need to produce more supply domestically because we can't be dependent on places like China for pharmaceuticals. We can't be dependent on places like China for medical gloves and essential medicines. We can't be dependent upon them for so many critical elements that we use in the United States to produce more sophisticated products, but for everyday living. So I think the American people understand that that's going to take an adjustment. The big problem with the inflation, of course, let's not forget, is the fact that in 2019 we spent in the United States $4.4 trillion as a federal government, and this year we are on track to spend 7.2 trillion. That's according to Biden's own estimates when he was walking out the door. So that is a huge explosion of the balance sheet that has driven inflation, and we have to get that under control. It's more important, frankly, than the tariffs. It's more important than the resetting of American manufacturing. And I think that they are going to make aggressive moves over the next 4 years on spending. And he's got to get his tax cuts reauthorized to get the economy continuing to move and improve since he's come into office.
Thank you very much indeed for being with us. That is Joe Grogan, who's the former director of the United States Domestic Policy Council.